Have you ever felt that the more you grow, the deeper, more conscious, and more authentic you become, and the fewer men are truly capable of reaching your essence? They look at you, they desire you, but they can't touch the most genuine part of you, the part that isn't for sale, doesn't play roles, and never betrays itself. The truth is, valuable men are rare, but women who are capable of captivating them are even rarer. And it's not about beauty, how often you smile, or how available you are. It's about energy. The kind of energy that speaks before words, that reveals who you are even in silence. In this video, I'll reveal the invisible signals, the subtle choices, and the inner power that make a truly valuable man say, "She's the one, she's the woman I want to build with." If you feel deep down that you're worthy of this kind of love, stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn could completely shift how you see yourself and how the world responds to you. What does a valuable man really mean, and why do so few truly understand it? A valuable man is not someone with power, success, or outward charm. Not the one who speaks confidently, and not the one surrounded by approval. A valuable man is the one who has dared to look within himself, to face his fears, and to acknowledge his vulnerabilities without shame. Carl Jung teaches us that true value is born through the process of individuation, the inner journey that transforms a human from a reactive being into a conscious individual. A valuable man is not perfect. He is aware of his shadows, and that is precisely why they no longer control him. He doesn't seek a woman to fill a void, to compensate for lack, or to validate his ego. He seeks a partner who is rooted in herself. A woman who doesn't need to be desired to feel alive. Who is not afraid of silence, and not afraid of time. Most women, and men too, misunderstand what true value means. They think it's something that needs to be shown, displayed. But a valuable man reveals himself in silence, in how he respects what he doesn't understand, in how he listens even when it's uncomfortable, in how he doesn't need to dominate to feel powerful. And when such a man meets a woman who doesn't play games, who doesn't lose herself to be chosen, who has lived through her pain instead of projecting it onto others, he recognizes her. Not because she seems perfect, but because she is real. And to a valuable man, realness is beauty. A wise woman is not the one who knows everything, but the one who understands in silence. She's not the quickest to respond, nor the most persuasive with words. She is the one who has learned to observe, to listen between the lines, to feel beyond what is spoken, to distinguish the thirst for love from love itself. A wise woman has walked through her wounds and no longer tries to hide them. She has cried in the dark without expecting anyone to come and save her. And that is exactly why she doesn't enter relationships to be completed, but to share what she has already found within herself. According to Jung, a woman who has integrated her shadow stops projecting. She no longer idealizes the man in front of her. She doesn't expect him to make her whole. She doesn't make him responsible for her happiness. And it is this energetic maturity that makes her incredibly powerful. Because a valuable man is not looking for a muse to worship. He's seeking a presence next to which he can simply be himself, without masks. A wise woman doesn't play at being desirable, but she also doesn't give herself to those who can't truly see her. She is mysterious because she doesn't explain herself. She is magnetic because she doesn't chase. She is desired because she has stopped running. When she walks into a room, she doesn't conquer with her body, but with her calm. Because her energy doesn't shout, it draws in. and the one whose soul has awakened will recognize her instantly. We live in a noisy world. Everyone talks, explains, justifies themselves, shouts about their value hoping to be noticed. But valuable men don't seek noise, they seek depth. And depth lives in silence. A woman's inner silence is a rare form of strength. It's not the absence of a voice, it's the absence of anxiety. It's the presence of calm that needs no validation to simply be. It is the silence that comes after the storm, when a woman has gathered all her shattered pieces and chosen to love them every one, even those the world called wrong. Carl Jung wrote that true transformation happens not when we add something, but when we integrate what was rejected. And a woman's inner silence is the result of precisely this invisible work. A valuable man, one who has faced his own abysses, perceives this silence as a subtle call. He feels it in the pauses between words, in her gaze that holds no expectation, in the way she neither chases him nor pushes him away. It's not indifference, it's rootedness. It's the knowing that she no longer loses herself even for love. And for a man who has barely found himself, meeting a woman who has done the same is like coming home. The invisible language of female energy and how it speaks to the male unconscious. An intense feminine aura awakens the male unconscious. It's not your body, not your smile, it's what the eye cannot see, but the soul feels. Men are drawn to you, guided by an energy they cannot explain. An ancient magnetism, subtle and gentle, speaking not to their mind, but to something much deeper, their unconscious. Carl Jung taught, the unconscious never sleeps, it feels, it reaches out, it responds. And when a woman radiates vibrant, whole energy, her presence is like a reflection of something a man once knew but long lost. For an awakened man, such a woman is not just a partner. She is like a mirror in which he first sees his soul. But for an unprepared man, her energy can be frightening. Too bright, too deep, too sensitive. Because her light exposes his shadow. Her honesty reveals his masks. Her presence shows everything in him that is still unhealed. And then he retreats. Not because she is too much, but because he is not enough yet. But a woman who understands this no longer blames herself. She knows her task is not to diminish, but to remain in the light and wait for the one who is ready to enter it. Why do men disappear when they fall in love with such a woman? This is one of the most painful truths. Sometimes a man falls in love with you truly, deeply, completely, and still walks away. He disappears silently, without explanations. Sometimes even when everything seemed perfect. Why? Because love, true love, is a mirror. And in you, he saw not only what he desired, but also everything he denies in himself. Carl Jung wrote that everything we have not become conscious of in ourselves is projected onto others, and the stronger the projection, the more tension, fear, and flight you have awakened in him, the man he has not yet become. You have stirred questions in him that he is not yet ready to answer. You became a challenge not because you demanded, but simply because you were yourself. And for a man who has spent his life running from his pain, from his depth, from his shadow, your radiance became too much. He fell in love with you but could not bear to face himself through you. It's not your fault, it's his path, his lesson, and maybe he will return, but only if he is ready. And you keep shining, because a woman who is true to herself is not afraid of losses, if that is the price for her truth. A woman who does not diminish herself becomes a choice, not an option. You were not born to fit into others' expectations. You were born to shine in your fullness. But since childhood, you were taught, don't be too much too sensitive, too loud, too smart, too strong. And you began to shrink, to adapt, to become convenient in order to be accepted, to be chosen, to not be abandoned. But there comes a moment when the soul can no longer endure, when the inner woman stands up and says, enough. Carl Jung wrote that the process of individuation is a return to oneself, a restoration of the wholeness lost in the attempt to conform. When a woman no longer diminishes herself, she becomes a choice. She no longer asks for love, she radiates it. She does not beg, she creates space. She does not chase, she attracts. A valuable man immediately feels the difference. He sees in her not someone seeking rescue, but someone who has already saved herself. And then he does not choose her out of need. He approaches because he feels truth in her. For a true woman does not compete, she simply is. And this cannot be faked. A woman at peace with herself gives love that heals. When a woman stops waiting to be filled, to be saved, to be chosen, she becomes herself not a half, but a whole world. And then her love is no longer about the fear of being abandoned, no longer about dependency, no longer about, I'll give to you so you'll stay. Her love is like a river, it flows because there is a source within her. Carl Jung said that each of us carries both light and shadow, and that healing love is born precisely when we embrace both. A woman who is at peace with herself no longer fears loneliness because she has found a home within. She does not demand, she chooses. She does not look for someone to complete her, she looks for someone to grow with. Such a woman cannot be possessed. You can only walk beside her with respect, presence, and soul. And a man who has also traveled the path to himself will not fear her strength. He will see in her not a threat, but an ally, not a rebel, but a mirror of his own maturity. And together, they will not be a perfect couple, they will be two whole worlds choosing to share. She no longer craves to be loved, she radiates love. When a woman breaks free from the cycle of fear, where love is a reward for obedience or recognition for denying herself, she begins to love differently, not to earn it, not to hold on, but because inside her, everything is already full. She no longer seeks love like oxygen to survive, she is the breath itself. Carl Jung wrote that everything we do not become conscious of within ourselves, we seek outside. But when a woman awakens, she stops looking outside for what already lives inside. And then her gaze changes. Her step, her silence, even her solitude no longer emptiness, but a space where she reunites with herself. That is why men feel her differently. She does not pull, does not cling, does not adjust. She gives, but does not give herself entirely to someone who cannot hold her soul in their hands. And that makes her unforgettable. She is not afraid to lose him because she no longer loses herself. When a woman goes through the pain of betrayal, silence, rejection, and still remains with herself, she stops being afraid. Not because she has become cold, but because she has become alive. Carl Jung wrote that we do not heal by avoiding pain, but by moving through it with awareness. A woman who no longer loses herself is no longer afraid to lose a man because she knows, if his presence requires her disappearance, that is not love, it is a transaction. And her soul no longer bargains. She may feel sadness. Yes, she feels, but now her pain is not about being unworthy, but about him not being ready. And this distinction sets her free. She lets go not because she doesn't love, but because she will not betray herself for someone who does not see her. And in this peace lies her greatest strength. She no longer competes, and she simply exists in a world where women are taught to compete for attention, where worth seems dependent on appearance. Silent confidence becomes a revolution. A woman who knows her depth does not compete, does not compare, does not need superiority. Carl Jung wrote, "Comparison is the voice of the ego, but the soul knows every path is unique." And a woman rooted in herself does not build her strength on the weakness of others. She simply is quietly, fully, genuinely. And that is exactly what makes her stand out in a noisy world. She is not interested in games, not interested in being better. She is interested in being herself and attracting the one who will see that truth. And for a man with an awakened soul, her simple presence becomes the brightest light in a space full of falseness. She does not demand attention, she radiates presence. There are women who enter a room and immediately draw all eyes not because of their appearance, not because of their outfit, but because of their energy. This is the energy of a woman who no longer seeks attention because she has become the center of her own world. Carl Jung taught that what we seek outside most often points to what we have lost inside. And when a woman returns to herself, to her feelings, to her intuition, to her wholeness, her attention to herself becomes an invisible light that others feel even from a distance. She does not speak much, but every word she says carries weight. She does not prove her worth, she simply lives in it. And a man who has spent his whole life searching for something he didn't even know what suddenly feels in her what he could never mean, neither a show nor an illusion, but presence. She does not call out, she attracts. In a world where everyone shouts, she whispers, and that is why she is heard. She does not chase, does not persuade, does not beg. She knows. True connection does not require pursuit. It happens in silence, in the resonance of souls, in something impossible to explain, but impossible to forget. Carl Jung said, "Our unconscious leads us to what corresponds with our inner truth." And a woman who lives in harmony with herself becomes a magnet for opportunities, for coincidences, for men who see beyond masks. She does not use tactics. She does not play a role. Her power is in authenticity, and this authenticity disarms, mesmerizes, and heals. Because in a world where everyone tries to be someone else, meeting a woman who simply is a gift many didn't even know they dreamed of. She does not seek validation, she already knows who she is. When a woman has not yet known herself, she lives in expectation of recognition, praise, acceptance. She looks at the world like a mirror, hoping to see proof of her worth in the eyes of others. But when she wakes up, when she returns to herself, her gaze changes. She no longer needs validation because her inner voice has become louder than the external one. Carl Jung wrote that individuation is the path to gaining inner authority, and a woman who walks this path no longer allows others' judgments to define her essence. She can listen, but she does not lose herself in the noise. She can open up, but does not break her boundaries because she knows her value is not in the eyes of others, it is in her breath, in her awareness, in her simple being. She no longer rescues, she chooses men who have already saved themselves at some point. She thought love was salvation, that if she was kind, patient, loving enough, he would change. And she tried again and again to give more than she could, erasing herself for someone who didn't even want to be found. Then she realized, this is not love, this is self-abandonment disguised as love. Carl Jung wrote, You cannot awaken someone who is not yet ready to wake up. And the woman who has finally opened her eyes stops rescuing. She no longer falls in love with potential. She does not play the role of a therapist. She does not try to be a light for someone who chooses darkness. She does not settle for less, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. In the past, she accepted crumbs, half-hearted love, promises without actions, presence without being truly present. She told herself, maybe this is what love is. And she endured, waited, justified. But at some point her soul pleaded, enough. Carl Jung wrote that the soul knows it deserves more, even if the mind still clings to less. And then she woke up, not with anger, not with hatred, but with clarity. She realized that settling for less means betraying herself. And from that day on, she chooses differently. She chooses relationships where her voice is heard, where her depth is valued, where her light does not frighten but inspires. This is not pride. This is not arrogance. It is mature self-love. It is this energy that changes everything. She is not afraid of solitude because she has turned it into a sanctuary. Once, loneliness scared her. It seemed cold, heavy, empty. She filled it with voices, messages, attachments, even though she knew it wasn't hers. But each time her soul cried in silence, she began to hear herself. Carl Jung wrote that only in solitude can a person truly meet their own shadow and their light. And she stayed not as a victim, but as a woman who decided not to run anymore. And in this silence, she found depth, peace, a connection with herself that no one else could give her. Now her solitude is not a punishment, but a space of power. There she is, silent, dances, creates, listens to the voice of intuition. And when a man approaches, he feels, this woman is not lonely, she is whole. And if she lets him in, it is not out of need, but out of choice. She does not beg. She opens the door only to those who knock with their soul. When a woman does not yet know her worth, she gives too much, too fast, hoping her kindness will melt the cold, that her devotion will make someone stay. And she waits, begs, endures silence, apologizes for her intensity, until one day she notices her inner doors were always open, even to those who came barefoot across her soul. Carl Jung wrote, "We are not obliged to let into our psyche everyone who knocks. True awakening is in choosing." And now she chooses. She no longer explains her love to those who are not ready to hear, nor opens her heart to those who do not know how to hold it gently. Her soul is a temple, and only those who come with respect, sincerity, and presence may enter. And if the door does not open, it means the soul sensed neither the time, nor the person, nor the path. She does not want to conquer, she wants to truly connect. She no longer plays the hunt, does not wait for text to feel desired, does not ask for love, does not prove that she is worthy. She wants something different, deeper, quieter, real. She wants eyes that see, hands that hold without chains, a presence that does not vanish on difficult days. Carl Jung wrote that true connection is possible only between two conscious souls. And a woman who has become whole no longer falls in love with a wrapper, neither status nor mask. She is drawn to truth, to those who are not afraid to be vulnerable, to those who do not run from their shadow, to those willing to dive deep. And if such a person is not near, she does not fall, she does not get lost. She continues walking with love, with faith, with herself. She does not resent those who did not choose her because she chose herself. Once, she broke inside every time someone left, doubted her worth, tried to understand what she did wrong. She looked at herself through the eyes of those who could not stay. But with pain came wisdom, with solitude clarity, with loss return. Carl Jung wrote that we suffer when we identify ourselves with the image created for others. And she understood her worth does not depend on someone else's choice. She can be a miracle and still remain unseen, and that does not make her any less of a miracle. Now she no longer takes offense. She is grateful, because everyone who left has freed space for the one who can see her whole. And she no longer asks, proves, or holds on, because she made the main choices she chose herself. She no longer rushes, she feels when something is real. Before, she feared pauses, silence, uncertainty. She rushed to understand, rushed to be liked, rushed to be enough. But with experience came trust not in others, but in herself, in her body, in her intuition, in the inner, and even the sacred. Carl Jung wrote, "The soul speaks through symbols, through sensations, through rhythms not, through hurry." And now she does not hurry, does not enter too quickly, does not give too soon. She listens to the space, looks deeper, feels between the lines, because she knows the real does not require haste. It is recognized, it responds, it breathes in the same rhythm as her soul. You don't have to change to deserve love. You need to remember who you were before the world convinced you that you were too much or not enough. You don't have to shrink your soul so that a man feels bigger. You don't have to hide your depth to avoid scaring those who are afraid of themselves. Carl Jung said that the path to an authentic life is the path of returning to your essence. And if you have ever felt that your strength scares others, your tenderness is underestimated, your honesty is too loud, know that you have simply met those who have not yet met themselves. A man capable of true love is not afraid of your light. He does not disappear when you open up. He stays, he sees, he feels. But before meeting such a man, you must become a woman who has already chosen herself. And then everything changes, because love will no longer be a search, it will become a reflection of what you already are.